Welcome to the Greater Statesville Chamber of Commerce 2024 Candidate Podcast, where we have an opportunity to interview candidates who are running for local, state, and federal office. And I'm pleased to be joined with Angela Wokatsch Matthews, who's running for County Commissioner. Welcome.
Thank you, William. How are you?
Good. Tell me about Angela.
Angela. Okay, so I think it's easiest to start off at my beginning, right, and let people know a little bit about me, where I came from, sort of what I stand for. I actually was born right here in Statesville. A product of the public school system here. Started out at Wayside, if any of you guys remember that school. It's not in operations anymore, but I had a lot of good memories there. Graduated from West Iredell High School. Then I went on to Catawba College in Salisbury, obtained a bachelor's degree in accounting there. A few years after that, I sat and passed the CPA exam. And for the last 26 plus or minus years, I have been a certified public accountant with an office in downtown Statesville.
Okay. This is not a decision you came to lightly in terms of running for office. What motivated you to run?
So about 3 years ago, I'll just tell you kind of how it happened. In 2010, my family, I suffered a little tragedy, and so for 7 or 8 years, I was kind of trying to work through that. I had a baby, and I was trying to raise him, and so I was focused more on providing and taking care of Camden. And after Trump got into office in 2016, I think there were a lot of us who started to really engage in politics. So I decided to network with some other folks and find out a little bit more about local politics because, of course, you got to start somewhere, right? So local politics, we started, just meeting and discussing different things. We were trying to come up with viable candidates, folks, that we thought might be good to fit into these positions. And then somebody in the group said, hey, I think you'd be good for county commissioner, because if you think about it, let's talk about what the county commissioners do, right? So the main job is they set the tax rate, they approve the annual budget, they recommend and set a lot of the policies and do some board appointments, right? That's the bulk of what that position entails. So pretty much since I was 14 years old, tax is what I've done, right? So I have an extensive amount of time in governmental and not-for-profit accounting, budgeting, tax, finance. I know the ins and outs, sales tax, occupancy tax, all those things I have done. So I felt like I did have something to contribute to the county as far as my skill and expertise. So that's actually how it all started.
Sure. This is a very diverse county. I like to say that we really have two counties in one. You've got what's north of I-40, you've got what's south of I-40. And the county is certainly benefiting from economic development,
Sure.
the city as well as the county. But at the same time, we're a very agrarian community as well. How do you balance economic development and growth with making sure that we keep our farmers in business?
Sure. So that's a question that's a hot button topic, especially for us right now because we are growing so rapidly. And a lot of people have concerns because it seems like we're heavy on the residential growth, right? So in order to have a balanced, healthy economic situation for the county, we as commissioners would need to aggressively pursue commercial development. Right? Because what happens, and I try to explain this to people, what happens with commercial development when we pull those guys in here is they'll come in and they'll pay property tax on their building and their land, but they also pay personal property tax on all the machinery and the equipment that they use in their businesses. So it's a win-win for the county because we get revenue from those taxes, but we're also providing jobs, good-paying jobs for our citizens. And that way, if we have a 70% residential development and 30% commercial, that's considered healthy. So I'd like to kind of see it maybe 65-35 because folks are really focused on property taxes right now. And we have to have a certain amount of money to be able to run the county, right? So we're going to have to get it from somewhere. So in order to be able to help the residents out and ease their burden, we're going to have to find another way to do that. So this is one way that we can do that is by actively pursuing some of these companies to come and do business here in Iredell.
Well, let's talk about the tax rate for a minute. Iredell County, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, has the ninth lowest ad valorem tax rate in the state out of 100 counties.
Well, we were at 18, and then when we changed our rate for this year, we're actually tied for 21st lowest. So we're still doing well because there are 79 other counties who have a higher tax rate than we do.
Well, we'll take that and run with it. Is our tax rate where it needs to be? Should it be higher? Should it be lower?
Well, you know, I advocated, this is interesting, actually, on the radio I advocated, and actually at the podium I advocated for a rate reduction because I think we all could see what was about to happen. Iredell County does its reval every 4 years. The state requires that you do a property revaluation every 8, but we here choose to do it every 4. So I think we all knew in 22, 23, we were at the peak of the bubble, right? With 2 years into Biden and an economy that was sluggish, I guess is probably a good term for it. The investors were not really keen on the market. So what happens is that Iredell County, for cost of living purposes, is a great place to relocate, right? So we have tons of people wanting to move here, right? And so if you understand economics and how it works and supply and demand, if everybody wants to come live here because we do have a low tax rate, then of course all of our properties are going to go up in value, right? Because the demand is high and the supply was low at the time. So I think it was the perfect storm. We just got caught in the perfect storm. I would have liked to have seen it a little bit lower. I know that there were some counties that wanted to do a revenue neutral approach to the tax rate, and some of them did that. I think for Iredell County, we had so many obligations that we were going to have to meet that the commissioners did what they thought had to be done.
Sure.
So like I was talking about earlier, in order for us to get it lower, which of course we'd all like to see it lower, right? Like I am all for voluntary taxes and having companies or businesses or other people pay our taxes for us, right? So that we can get ours down a little bit. But we're going to have to come up with ways to do that, right? And our county needs a certain amount of money to operate efficiently and effectively. So we know that, right? And if that number's $300 million, we have to figure out a way to get there. So I have some ideas on how we might be able to get there or have a healthy balance in between.
You know, I used to kid my friends on the county commission when I was at city council that, you know, what do you guys really do? I mean, you're not building roads, you don't have infrastructure, you don't have water, you don't have sewer, you're not picking up any garbage. What do you guys do? What do you think is the most important function as a county commissioner? Well,
I think it's that annual budget, right? Because those 5 people are the stewards of our money, right? So we're all paying, you know, into the pot, right? We'll just call it the pot. So they have to make a lot of important decisions, hard decisions, right? Because if you think about it, like you said earlier, we're a very diverse county, so everybody has their hand out, and everybody says, I need, right? But at the end of the day, I think we have to treat government like we do our own homes, right? Like our own checkbook, and that's what I want to do as well, is at the end of the day, we have to prioritize, like, what are our wants and what are our needs, right? And then we have to go from there in fulfilling those obligations. I had mentioned before the Constitution requires certain things that the commissioners do, which is maintain law and order, right? Which would mean we have to fund our sheriff's department. We have to fund EMS, our first responders. They have to be the top priority because without law and order, we're going to have chaos here in the county. The state of North Carolina requires that we build schools. So hence the next problem is with everybody moving here, we just have an overflow of children, and just having my daughter on the school board, you know, I understand the struggles that they go through with making sure that they have enough classrooms, have enough teachers, have enough bus drivers, and so forth. So I think it's all about priority, right? And at the end of the day, the most important thing is making sure that we're following what we're required to do by the Constitution, the state of North Carolina, but also making sure that our citizens are taken care of, right? And it's going to be a struggle, right? Because we have 10% of our population lives in poverty. right? And so you have to take into consideration those folks too. And I've talked about this a couple of times before as well, that I have clients that are on fixed income, right? And we've been fortunate enough that if I had to pay $50 or $75 more a month in property taxes, I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. Of course, nobody wants to do that. But if we needed a school, and the children needed a place to go, I would be okay with doing that. But not everybody has that same luxury, right? So I think the commissioners, we just have to be mindful. We have to make sure that we continue to offer certain exclusions or exceptions, especially to farmers, like you mentioned earlier. That's really important to me as well. I'm one of those that's going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to read the label on the back, and if it says bioengineered ingredients, I'm going to put it back, right? So I want to make sure that we're not selling too much of our farmland to developers, right? Because I don't want Iredell County to become a place where everybody lives, but then they work somewhere else, right? Like I think in order for commissioners, for us to do what we're supposed to do, we need to make sure that we're not top heavy on one or the other.
Right. So if I'm correct, there are 9 running for 3 seats. Is that correct?
7 running for 3 seats.
7 running for 3.
And then the top 2 will get a 4-year term, and then the third highest vote getter would get a 2-year term, unless
the referendum passes.
Yes.
Sure. The last question: out of the 7, why vote for Angela?
So for me, I have a vested interest here in this community. I've been here for, and I'll tell my age, 51 years. So I have lived, breathed, worked here, raised my children here. My daughter just had a granddaughter, so she'll be here now. So I have a vested interest in making sure that this county is the best that it can be. I also want to, like I mentioned earlier, bring my knowledge and skill set, the successes that I have experienced in business, and I want to use those to help run the county, make it operate efficiently, effectively, and continue to do so going forward.
Well, thank you for your interest in running. It's an admirable thought. We wish you well, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.